Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad mu'ajjil farajam. The question that we will address today is a very important question, and that is, does Allah speak like humans? Or how does Allah speak? In general, inshallah, we'll talk about the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is speech. When it comes to the attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, speech, all schools of thought in Islam believe speech is one of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, the contradiction is on two things. Number one, what is the proof that Allah speak? And number two, how does Allah speak? So when it comes to the question, what is the proof that Allah speak? There are two schools of thought. Number one is Ash'arites, who say that the proof of the speech of Allah is logical. Number two is Mu'tazila and Imamiyah, who say that the proof of speech of Allah is the verse of Quran, and that is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَكَلَّمَ اللَّهُ مُوسَى تَكْلِيمًا, and Allah spoke directly to Musa. So they say that we can't prove by logic, we can't prove by reason that speech is one of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But whereas we can prove it through Quran, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself said that Allah spoke directly to Musa. So this is the proof that speech is one of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Mu'tazila and Imamiyah say that Ash'arites' logics has flaws, their reasons has flaws, so they don't count their proof as something that is sufficient. Now comes the question that how does Allah speak? If speech is one of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we associate it to Allah, then how does He speak? Ash'arites again believe that the speech of Allah is self-speech. Now they say speech is one of the attributes of Allah, but they say that it's self-speech. His speech is not words, His speech is not sound, His speech is not order or any other such thing. It is eternal and it's self-speech, kalamun nafsi. He does not actually materialize it into sound, words, sentences. Whereas Mu'tazila and Imamiyah believe that speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is materialized through words, sentences, and sound. Now comes the question, whose opinion is right? Obviously, the second opinion, Mu'tazila, which is one of the Sunni schools of thought, and Imamiyah, their opinion is right. Why? Because rationally and conventionally and traditionally, speech is considered something that occurs through words, that occurs through sentences, that occurs through sound, which can be heard. Because we don't associate the speech to someone who does not talk, who does not speak. So the first opinion cannot be right because it's something that cannot be imagined. And if something that cannot be imagined, it cannot be proved. It's one of the rules in Shi'i doctrine, Shi'i theology. Now comes the question, does Allah speak like us, or does Allah speak Himself? Now again, there are three schools of thought in this matter. Ash'arites associate that Allah's speech is not materialized. He doesn't speak neither Himself nor through any other creation, but it exists within the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what is their belief. Hanabala believe that it exists within the essence of Allah, and He speaks Himself with words. He speaks Himself with sentences and with sound like humans. Mu'tazila and Imamiyya believe that Allah's this attribute comes into existence through other creations. Like Allah talked to Prophet Musa through tree. So it is one of the actions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is not practiced by himself, and it is not something that can be said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speak like us. Now, why the first opinion is not right? Ash'ari's opinion is wrong because we said that before, that if speech is something that is associated to someone, then it should be materialized. We don't associate speech with someone who doesn't talk or who can talk. Second is also not correct because if Allah speaks Himself, Allah speaks like us, He needs a faculty in order to materialize His speech. And this would mean Allah has faculties or Allah has senses like us, which can't be right because it would imply Allah has body or He occupies a certain space, which is far from the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now comes the question, how does Allah speak? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself says in the Quran, and it was not vouchsafed to any mortal that Allah should speak to him unless it be by revelation or from behind a veil or that He sends a messenger. So there are three modes of Allah's self disclosure. Number one, by revelation, by divine inspiration. By revelation, over here we mean divine inspiration. Number two, by from behind a veil, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talked to Prophet Musa. And number three, by messenger, and by that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means angel. So we can summarize today's talk that speech is one of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all schools of thought believe in that. But Imamiyya and Mu'tazila believe that He doesn't talk like humans, because if He talks like humans, then He needs a faculty, He needs senses, and that would mean that we are specifying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a certain time or with a certain space, and that is far from the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So He speaks, but through revelation or from behind a veil or through a messenger. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.